the ghost inmate. Before we begin, hit subscribe, because after this story, you'll never look at your neighbor the same way again. In the heart of Colorado's desert plain stands ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in America. They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies, a place where the nation's most dangerous inmates vanish from the world. No bars, no windows, just concrete, steel, and silence. They say no one has ever escaped, but that's not entirely true. In 2003, during a routine roll call, prison staff discovered something that didn't make sense. Inmate 10276, a quiet man named Aaron Vale, was missing. His cell was sealed from the inside. No forced entry, no broken locks, no tunnel, no trace. At first, officials believed it was a clerical error. Maybe Vale had been transferred or moved for interrogation. But when they checked the logs, his name wasn't on any transfer order. His fingerprints were still in the system, his meals untouched. And then there was the camera footage. Every hallway in ADX Florence is monitored 24/7. Overlapping angles, motion sensors, heat tracking. But between 2:13 a.m. and 2:19 a.m. that morning, one camera in Block C flickered. 6 minutes of static. When the feed resumed, Vale's bed was empty. The FBI arrived within hours. They tore the cell apart brick by brick, convinced there had to be a hidden passage, a flaw in the structure. What they found instead chilled them: a small hand-drawn map etched into the concrete beneath Vale's mattress, a layout of ADX Florence itself, perfectly detailed, including corridors that weren't even in the public blueprints. And at the bottom corner, next to the staff exit, he'd written 3 words in charcoal: "Still in here." For months, the Bureau kept the case secret. ADX couldn't afford the scandal, the idea that someone had slipped to the world's tightest prison without setting off a single alarm. But in 2013, 10 years later, a new homeowner in the nearby town of Florence called local police. He just bought a foreclosed house on Warden Road, less than a mile from the prison. In the basement, behind a false wall, he found a mattress and a box filled with old prison uniforms. Each one bore the same faded marking: ADX 10276. The discovery sent shockwaves through Florence, Colorado, a town built on routine, quiet, and trust. For a decade, people had driven past that same small brick house every morning, never realizing the most wanted man in the country might have been drinking coffee just a few doors away. When the FBI arrived, they sealed off the entire block. The basement walls were lined with newspaper clippings, all about ADX Florence. Every renovation, every guard rotation, every article that mentioned an escape-proof design. Vale had been studying his captors even after he'd left their walls. The strangest part was how ordinary everything looked. There was no high-tech hideout, no elaborate security system, just a quiet home with bills paid on time and a garden neatly kept. The mailbox still carried his alias: Aaron Vale, contractor. Neighbors described him as friendly but reserved. He fixed roofs, shoveled snow, even helped a Johnson kid with his bike. One woman said, "Never thought he could have been one of them." Agents pieced together a decade of records. Vale had created a fake identity 6 months before his supposed escape, a clean birth certificate, fabricated work history, even a tax record that went back years. He hadn't just escaped prison. He'd erased himself and rebuilt his life next door. But the question that haunted investigators most was how he got out in the first place. One theory came from a former ADX engineer who reviewed the 2003 schematics. He pointed to an old ventilation route sealed after facility's first year of operation. If you knew the infrastructure, he said, you could move between the walls. But surviving that long, no one could. Yet the evidence said otherwise. Inside the basement, agents found fragments of old prison meals, vacuum-sealed food packets from ADX's kitchen supply. They'd expired in 2003. Someone on the inside had been smuggling them out. That's when they began to suspect an accomplice. Maybe a guard, maybe an engineer. Someone who'd worked there, disappeared from records, and never resurfaced. Agent Claire Donovan, who led the manhunt, believed Vale's disappearance wasn't just an escape. It was a system failure, she said. Someone helped him vanish. And they didn't do it for money. When the team cross-checked the fingerprints from the house, One set didn't match Vale's. They belonged to Officer Mark Yates, a corrections officer who resigned exactly 1 week before the 2003 escape. Yates' personnel file was thin. No address, no family, just a resignation letter that ended with a line investigators would never forget. He deserved a second chance. Outside, as the FBI searched the woods behind the property, a trail of footprints led toward the prison fence line. The prints stopped abruptly, as if whoever made them had vanished into thin air, and from a nearby correctional tower, a security camera caught something chilling. A faint figure standing at the tree line, watching. The guard swore it looked like Vale. 10 years after his escape, it seemed he'd never really left. The man who wasn't there. By the time dawn broke over the town of Florence, the FBI's command post looked like a crime scene out of a nightmare. Maps, photographs, and blueprints of ADX Florence covered the walls, all connected by red string. Yet none of it answered the single question haunting every agent in the room. How does a man disappear from a concrete box and live next door for 10 years without being seen? Agent Claire Donovan sat at her desk, reviewing the evidence again. Every document, every report. That's when she noticed something odd in the 2003 footage. During the 6 minutes of static from cell block C, the frame didn't just cut to black. There were shapes, shadows, a flicker of light, like a door opened behind the cell. She enhanced the footage. For a split second before the feed went dead, she saw a man standing beside Aaron Vale, wearing a guard's uniform. The name tag on his chest was blurry, but she could make out the first letter. Y. Officer Mark Yates. The missing guard hadn't just helped Vale escape. He was in a cell with him that night. The next breakthrough came from the old warden's archives, sealed and forgotten in the county records. Hidden among routine memos was a letter dated February 2003, written by Yates himself. It was short, 2 lines. He doesn't belong here. He's not who they say he is. The rest of the page was burned away. As agents retraced the old ventilation system, they found something no one expected. A narrow shaft sealed behind an old storage room, large enough for one man to crawl through. It led to a maintenance tunnel that ran directly under the east perimeter fence, a forgotten relic from when the prison was still under construction. At the end of that tunnel was a steel door, welded shut. When the team cut it open, a rush of stale, dry air filled the space. Inside, under flickering light, lay 2 sets of remains, long decayed, sitting side by side. One skeleton wore a guard's badge reading Yates. The other wore an inmate's torn uniform tagged ADX 10276. Both had been there for years. The news broke a week later. The man who lived next door, the so-called escaped inmate, was confirmed through DNA not to be Aaron Vale. He was a drifter, a man Vale had met through prison outreach correspondence, paid to assume his identity once released from a halfway house. The real Aaron Vale had never escaped. He died in that tunnel, inches from freedom. The imposter, meanwhile, had lived as him for a decade, mowing lawns, fixing fences, and smiling at neighbors who never knew the truth. Agent Donovan closed her final report with one final line. He didn't escape the system. He became part of it. And when the ADX warden read it aloud months later, he looked out toward the prison yard, where even now a single cell light flickered on and off. Cell 10276. No one was inside, but the light never went out again.